When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Here we are, everybody. Welcome to Rewind to Raw. It is John Pollock and Wai Ting, where we're 45 minutes deep just going through all the news from the past weekend, from the passing of Gran Markus Jr., Linda McMahon and Dana White in attendance at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night, discussion on the WWE cuts and some potential landing spots for talent. Nick Khan saved all of his old tweets and let them out during a town hall meeting today. Always fun. Krule issuing a statement, finally addressing the Ruthless Pro Wrestling incident from last month, and some thoughts on the Curse of the Von Erichs doc that debuted on Sunday on A&E, Stardom's big show on Sunday, and Collision as well. All of that in a nice compact 45 minutes for Café members on the XL portion. I'm all wound up now, ready to go.
Almost like a double XL news pack there. So 45 minutes. I feel like we've already completed the show, But if that's not enough, tomorrow John and I will be back for a bonus edition of the Double Shot, where we will be talking about episode 1 of the Hulk Hogan documentary, which we are making available for everybody on our free feed at patreon.com/postwrestling. So do sign up for that. Join the free tier, and you can get access to this show for free as we discuss episode 1 of this Hulk Hogan doc.
And what's going to happen to Hulkamania?
We're going to die.
Love that.
So that is coming up 4 weeks.
Second favorite quote from the the Café
members get the top quote of episode 1. So yes, that kicks off Tuesday, free for everyone, and then episodes 2, 3, and 4 in the coming weeks for Café members as well. Also this week on the Café, Book Club is back on Thursday for Double Double and Espresso members. This week we are talking about Rampage by Lee Herbert, and this is all about the WWF's move into the UK market, beginning in '89, really peaking with SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium, and just how big the WWF was in the early 90s in the UK. Lee does a really great job of kind of conveying just as business was dropping in the US, it was thriving overseas. And certainly SummerSlam is one of the classic WWF shows of all time, a very big business success for them. So we'll be talking about that. And Neil will be giving us his firsthand experience of this time period as well, being our European representative of post-wrestling. So, into Raw we go. Would you believe me, Wai, if I told you this is the first time they've done TV in Laredo, Texas, in over 3 years? The last time they ran this place for TV was a SmackDown in January 2023, where they did over 7,500 people. This time around, it was about 8,400 tickets distributed. What an amazing crowd on this night. This Laredo crowd was awesome. They should be getting TV once a year easily.
If crowds were determined by noise level, if frequency was determined by noise level, yes, they would deserve one. I don't know if that's what they look for necessarily.
It's very rare that WWE get crowds like this that are sustained for the whole show, and I just thought it was a great crowd that they had in Laredo tonight. And apparently half of it was there to see Roxanne Perez.
Yeah. They certainly
Did they say she had 30 people, 30 guests at this show?
Yeah. How many comps did she receive and how many of them had to pay?
Yeah. I mean,
curious.
Yeah, it's, I'm sure it's not easy to get 30 comps these days. Although they never did say comp. She might have made her family pay.
Possibly.
So we start the show with a video package with Roman Reigns and the Usos sitting at the table. And the Usos are now the only ones Roman can trust. And he doesn't understand where Jacob Fatu is coming from. Jimmy understands Jacob wanting to upgrade his life, but that cannot come at the expense of the tribal chief. Jay is less diplomatic. He says he's dangerous. He could take everything. And Jay wants consequences for what Jay has done. And Reigns thanks them and then refers to them as the first family. Jimmy Hart is working with them here. We're going back to Memphis here with the first family. Now there was references to the Bloodline later in the show, but I do wonder if we're in for like a rebranding this time around for them
as the first family.
Well, he really emphasized this at the end, but I mean, it wasn't your usual like repeat this 5,000 times like we usually get with WWE naming something.
I mean, I don't understand why they would consider that, considering like the Bloodline just has such great cachet, as a brand. But
more merchandise, that's the reason why.
I suppose so, but you could still sell maybe a nickname for a shirt, right? So maybe that's
what if you put First Family FF and then an AO after each F?
You know what? Worth changing the name just for that. Yeah. Okay. I like this. Like, this feels like it might be a weekly thing where instead of like the locker room that we used to get with the Bloodline and Paul Heyman talking, this feels like it might be more like a sort of a committee style board meeting type of deal in a dark room, of course, as these always are. But it's something different. It shows you that this is the second chapter of the Bloodline, and Jimmy and Jay seem to have a bit more of a role, and they seem to have a bit more status with Roman now, who actually thanks them, for giving them their advice. So they did a good job in making Jacob continue to sound like a very strong threat here, much like they did on Friday. And I certainly also feel like they're leaning more and more heelish, especially against a very clear fan favorite here in Jacob Fatu.
Seth Rollins comes out and he states that when he lost at WrestleMania, it's not because Gunther was better than him. And the fact that Roman Reigns is walking around with my title, the reason for that is the same as why I lost to Gunther, Braun Breaker. And he mentions putting 9 staples into his head. So that would be, I believe, 17 staples dispersed between Braun Breaker and Sol Ruca last week.
Jeez.
On back-to-back nights. Breaker comes out with Heyman and has just a stare down in the middle. Crowd is into this. They're looking very intense at one another. And Rollins explains that he gave Braun everything on a silver platter, and you took everything away from me. And blames Braun for having to forfeit the title and asks, how did any of this benefit you? You did all of this. You turned on me. You kicked me out. And what did you get out of it? And Braun gets his retort here. As this was interesting. Heyman grabs the mic as if he's going to respond, but then he hands the mic to Braun, who can respond for himself. And he cut a great promo here. He says, you treated us like errand boys, him and Bronson Reed, to put out your fires because you have no friends. And then, I mean, this could have gone suffering succotash levels, but he plugged his nose to do his impression of Seth Rollins. I could have done without this. This was a little too lame WWE comedy for what the scene called for, in my opinion.
It felt to me a step too far for the type of character that I think Braun Breaker should be. And that's somebody who isn't necessarily high on like even mocking comedy or just really any sort of like he should be cooler than to, I don't know, like even do that as an impression, like to me, it just it wasn't completely fitting of like what I envisioned the character to be.
Well, he said he never needed Seth. I only needed him, referencing Heyman. And so Rollins shares a story of years ago being champion, wanting to fight the best in NXT, and Michaels told him that the best was Braun Breaker, and therefore wanted him in the vision, wanted to make him the next star because he calls Breaker the most versatile performer he's ever seen, and you've got everything except this, when he points to his head, and compares Breaker's choices with his own, comparing the fact that I made tough choices to advance my career. But the difference is I succeeded and you tried. And he says how you're off getting steak dinners and happy endings from Paul Heyman, and you're not ready. Braun says, Rollins, you blame me for losing your title and forfeiting it. Your body gave out on you, which would be accurate in the sense that Braun did nothing in storyline to cost this guy his championship.
Yeah, true.
So,
yes.
They did the attack. They did the attack after. But I mean, everyone, by this point, they basically explained where the injury was. But nonetheless, he says, your body gave out on you and your shoulder can't support the weight of the strap anymore. And he says, I can say I lost to the best in the world, whereas you just proclaim that about yourself. What you're the best at, Seth, is being number 2. And It's a good line he ends this with, and Rollins takes a second and refers to him as Baby Steiner. And dude, I don't know how hot it was in this building, but Seth was like, he was sweating profusely at this point in this promo. And he says, you can prove you're ready at Backlash. And then ends it by saying, Steiner, you're not even number 2 in your own family. It's like, don't you dare rank me below Rick, okay? So a good segment here. This one lengthy, and by the end of it we have the match set for Backlash, which everybody is in less than 2 weeks. We got one more Raw before this Backlash show. They basically got pretty much the card on the Raw side completed tonight. We got 3 matches from the Raw side tonight.
Yeah, this feels like it is a very fresh match, one that was supposed to be for WrestleMania, so it kind of feels like you're getting a WrestleMania level type of build for a Backlash match, which is, very strong for what is essentially a B-level show. This was another chance for us to hear what Braun Breaker sounds like on the microphone at present time, and I think he continues to, sound very good. Again, he's a guy with the type of, talent that doesn't need to be able to, he doesn't need to talk that well, but I think he's, for me, over exceeding my expectations of what a guy who can work like that, who can move like that, needs to sound like. I do think, again, maybe dialing it back a bit on the sort of Seth Rollins sort of mocking type of wit. I don't think that's necessarily so fitting for him, but we know he has the capability of delivering clear lines and delivering whatever they're scripting for him, or he's scripting for himself, relatively well.
Yeah, I mean, there will come a time that this guy is going to be a top babyface, and I really hope that he is able to, they do not script him like a lot of their top babyfaces of the past, of he's got to be a stand-up comedian on top of it in his promos, because I watched this, I was like, this is a very clear sign of how he should be delivering and stuff he should be staying away from.
He's a less is more guy. Brock Lesnar is a less is more guy. I think Oba Femi, as great as, maybe Oba Femi, it remains to be seen, but maybe he might be an exception, because I feel like he could still maintain the aura while talking. With Braun, sometimes I feel the more he speaks, the less I think of him with that aura. But we shall see. This is all still relatively new.
There was an angle with Stephanie Vaquer where she's jumped backstage by the Judgment Day, and they run an equipment box into her. And this seemed to be her write-off, because later they announced that she has a second-degree AC sprain on her left shoulder, and she will be out for a bit, they stated. So this looks to be the end of Vaquer for now.
What is the source of the injury? If legitimate? What are we
I do not know. I don't know what the full story is on her, but this very clearly to me was an injury angle to write her off for the time being.
Okay. So, I guess we'll find out soon. Could be. Maybe it's just time off.
Penta and Rusev for the Intercontinental title. Actually, I think this was a non-title match. Ethan Page comes out and he's ringside, and man, this crowd was really hot for Penta. This was the first instance of this crowd was very much, this was not your typical WWE crowd where it's they go nuts for the entrance and then they kind of settle in when the match begins. They were pretty hot for Penta throughout this. He evades an accolade and then feints on the reverse springboard and catches Rusev with a schoolboy in 7 minutes and 31 seconds. This after getting into Ethan's face on the floor, and then Rusev attacks him, large boos, and he sends Ethan out of the ring when he wants to pounce, but then Penta starts fighting back. Javon comes out, ending with an OG cutter onto Rusev, and then Javon and Penta embrace. So it's kind of feels like this 4-way program that's going on, and you could see maybe multiple title matches that stem from this on TV, but perhaps a 4-way, but it does feel like Penta and Evans is kind of a match they're holding back on.
Sure, yeah. Stemming off of, I would say, the great success of that ladder match as a way to springboard all of these guys into a feud together, I think that's worked out really well for all of them. Honestly, you look at the sea of names in that ladder match, and you do wonder, if not for that ladder match and the tremendous success of that ladder match, how many of these guys might be a part of that list of cuts? There are people here that, I don't know, specifically a Rusev, I'm thinking, who probably, without this whole program, you wonder if he'd be in a similar situation to somebody like a Malachi Black. But he clearly, is able to show, I think, his talents with somebody like a Penta. I think he's being used relatively well here. I thought it was a really cool finish in this match. Unique and different from what we usually get with Penta, just simply like stopping short, faking out with the springboard. And I also like the idea of Rusev and Ethan Page teaming up, like they were sort of teasing here. To me, they're a good combination of like brains and brawn, and I think it's a strong way of integrating Page on the roster and maybe getting Rusev into a more regular role on the show as well.
The Hamilton, Bulgaria team we didn't know
natural
needed. Los Americanos, who are all over this show. We have Kaiser hyping up the mask versus mask match, referring to Chad Gable as Chaparro Americano, American Shorty, who he will face on May 30th, the most important match of my career. I'm ready for the fight of my life, to fight for my name, my colors, and my house. And to get ready, he is challenging Rey Mysterio tonight.
Yeah. So, like, they are pushing heavily, a big main event on AAA, which is always nice to see that sort of integration. But they do have to walk that sort of, like, again, very, to me, unnecessary balancing act of having to still push these guys ultimately as heels on the show and Gable as a babyface.
Oh, my God.
And doing the reverse on the other show. And they're kind of, at this point, I think they're navigating it as best they could, but it just feels relatively unnecessary. Although in this promo, he didn't feel
the promo. I had
heelish.
no problem with this promo, but I had plenty of issues with what we would get later with this whole program. But that's to come. Becky Lynch is back, first time since WrestleMania. She has been on Raw and states that we have entered into a new era of the Manosphere.
I love that. I don't know why we haven't had that before, but especially as a heel, I think that's a wonderful.
Maybe she got the week off last week. She caught up on some Netflix and put 2 and 2 together. Maybe she's awaiting the double shot this month. And she said that I got rid of that loser AJ Lee, ended her horrible title reign, and lists off all the different titles. She's won 4 different titles at WrestleManias. She's now a 3-time IC champion, won more Mania matches than any female, and now she's coming for the Undertaker's record, but says that the most important thing at WrestleMania was seeing my daughter in the front row and telling her it's not about the 5-star hotels and all the big cities you go to. Being a champion is showing up in rundown towns like Laredo for common folk like you. She delivered this so well.
So good.
Yeah. And she is the man of the people and issues an open challenge, but she wants to face someone new, someone shiny. And out comes Iyo Sky. And Becky says, you are neither new nor shiny. I was wondering if Rhea would be coming because you've been holding her down. I don't want to face Marty Jannetty. And Iyo, who has never probably been compared to Marty Jannetty in her life, slaps Becky.
Did they have to explain to her who Marty Jannetty is and why this might be considered an insult? I wonder.
I wonder if Marty Jannetty still resonates with the grand. I imagine most.
I wonder if they showed Iyo Sky the Marty Jannetty Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, and she would realize, oh, that's a horrific insult. And Pierce comes out, and we hold people to verbal contracts, and you issued an open challenge, and therefore you are going to face her now. So that takes us into Becky and Iyo, and they had a great match together. 13 minutes. Sky hits a missile drop kick and a bullet train attack, and then she went for a suicide dive, and dude, I was nervous watching this setup as she went, but then Becky clubs her with a forearm from the floor, stops the suicide dive. So maybe she's just going to tease it now, and she'll hit it like once a year.
I do think so, at least for the next few weeks, while like maybe audiences are still like, I'm sure even like the company might be sensitive to her success rate lately with that move. She went for something a bit safer, like an Asai moonsault.
Yeah, well, I mean, she hit her with a sunset bomb here, and then she hits the Asai moonsault. She goes for an over the moonsault, lands on the feet right into a manhandle slam, and this place exploded for this near fall. Becky is stunned, and then after the Asai lands by Iyo, Sky's boot comes off from the floor. And it seemed like this didn't play into anything.
This just seemed like a legitimate,
seemed like her boot just got loose.
Yeah.
And then Asuka appears and trips Iyo, setting up a manhandle slam, and Becky retains the title. And Asuka attacks, applies the Asuka lock, and this was the opening for everyone to start chanting, "We want Kyrie."
Yeah. We were wondering, or at least online, there seemed to be a lot of I guess, momentum, towards this becoming a thing similar to We Want Truth. And they certainly didn't limit the opportunity for the chant to take place. Like you could suggest maybe in the opening segment, as soon as you saw Iyo Sky, I wondered if there was a chance that this crowd was going to chant that. Instead, they saved it for a time when Asuka was attacking Iyo. Of course, this audience would chant that. Anybody who I think, knows professional wrestling crowds in 2026 would probably expect it. I also don't think they are worried or concerned about it, nor do I think they will take any action as a result of this.
No, I don't think so either. Gable meets up with Rey Mysterio and asks him if he needs me to watch your back on May 30th. And Rey explains he's not picking sides here, just respect Lucha Libre on May 30th. And the Americanos enter, and Rey explains he's not choosing sides between the heel and the fake heel on the show.
Rey knows he has to balance this for audiences watching both shows.
Yeah.
So he can't acknowledge whether or not one is truly a heel or a baby.
It's like, guys, I got to call this, okay? Which means my prep better start now, okay? I've got bigger things to deal with than picking sides here. But, yeah, this was the start of our Americana. Like, I'm glad they're really promoting this, but, yeah, we'll have more to come here. This is, I don't know. Saxton is with the Usos and asks them about Reigns' decision. LA Knight walks in, doesn't want to see them getting back together in the bloodline. There's like, this, stay in your lane. This is family business. But Knight explains that when power corrupts, then it becomes my business.
I'm liking Knight here. Number one, it keeps him in the mix on the show with what is now the top faction, you could definitely say, on the show. But this is also very consistent with LA Knight's character, just dating to the history with the bloodline. And I think, like, in the lead up to this, warning the Usos about a bloodline reunion, now tensions continuing to rise between the two of them. So I think it's a strong role for Knight. I think Knight's doing well in these little scenes.
Joe Hendry's concert coming to Raw, and he performs a song. Joe Hendry's on Raw. You know what never occurred during any of these concerts? The play-by-play guy singing along, as Michael Cole decided to do for this. So the song includes insulting Logan Paul and asking to fire him, and it gets everyone chanting to fire Logan Paul until Paul interrupts, yelling, "I'm unfireable," and he cuts his Logan Paul style promo now, which is basically screaming while holding the belt next to his head. And yes, Cole is laughing this up for Corey Graves to then say, "What's fun about someone losing their job, Cole?" What awesome timing on this of all weeks that we're going to do this idea and make fun of it.
I mean, I do wonder if the line was more of an unfortunate improvisation, because I wouldn't think that they would heartlessly do that for their own colleagues. You do?
I mean, I don't think it would. Let me put it this way. Like, it just, I don't know. It just
You think this was deliberately put in there to mock the firings?
I don't think the line was necessarily done for that that particular reason. But I mean, this whole segment was structured around like getting a guy fired, which I understand. Logan Paul's the heel here, but like, there's no way like they wouldn't have put two and two together there. But they were like, well, this is our segment, and it's the clever line that we're going to put into it. So it could have just been Graves saying it for whatever reason here. But I just thought it came off as tacky, but no one will care. So they call themselves winners, and Hendry calls them primetime losers, and brawl breaks out. Graves compares this concert to that of Milli Vanilli and Ashley Simpson, and then the Street Profits make a save, and Paul saves Theory from the heavens, and Hendry leaps onto them. So the Street Profits are going for the tag belts. This didn't really set up anything for Joe Hendry. I guess something with Logan Paul, but this was more about the Street Profits getting one step closer to the tag champions and just a way to introduce Joe Hendry.
Sure. Yeah. No clear direction right now, I suppose, seeing that the Vision are tied with the Street Profits, but I suppose that, like, Hendry could be tied to the Street Profits. You know, they could be building to something where the titles go to the Street Profits, and directly after that you can go to Logan Paul and Joe Hendry. I like, to me, like, Joe Hendry is always a big question mark. Certainly for, I think, an NXT audience, he's proven that he's very successful, and these sort of concerts, like, I think go over tremendously. He received a great reaction for WrestleMania. He gets a great opening pop, but will the audience react to him the same way for like one of these big extended like concert segments? I at least felt like there was a question mark about it. And tonight, I don't think this could have gone better. I thought like he had a song that went over really well to an audience. He got a sing along going, and they picked the perfect target for him in a universally like hated heel in Logan Paul. And I thought Paul sold the reaction to the song incredibly well, and he somehow fits really well more as like a sort of a foil for a comedic type of babyface, and maybe that's just because like I don't know, like he's not necessarily a serious heelish threat right now, but as somebody for like a celebrity, pseudo celebrity for like a somebody like a Joe Hendry to make fun of, he kind of works really well. So I thought this was a great way to treat Joe Hendry upon debut.
Yeah, I could see Hendry going either way. Like these songs, and with the production at his disposal, like this could become like this cult thing on Raw. He could also just fall by the wayside too. Like this could become something like they're not going to invest in like a concert every couple of weeks or something for him. It could go either way. Ultimately, where this guy is in 6 months from now.
But these song, like tonight's song got over. I wonder if he continues to release one of these every few weeks or so, if like the momentum would really build. But you look at a success like a Danhausen. I mean, maybe something similar could happen with Joe Hendry as well.
Grayson Waller is complaining to Adam Pearce about no opportunities on Raw, calls Oba Femi overrated, and that he only beat Brock at the end of his career. And so Femi overhears this and is going to give Grayson an opportunity tonight. Street Profits hang out with Hendry backstage, and then Rollins walks up to them, and the Profits explain last week saving Rollins had nothing to do with Seth and just about winning the tag belts. So no connection there.
So Seth, the story is that Seth has no friends because he's still kind of fresh off of being a heel.
Yes, he's all by his lonesome. Rey Mysterio and El Grande Americano. So we have Kaiser, who cuts off a 619, and Rey gets caught on the shoulders and then turns it into a tornado DDT onto Kaiser. Bravo then trips Rey as Rayo distracts and goes to load up Kaiser's mask, but in doing so gets struck by a 619. Rey then misses the splash, and Kaiser has the object when Gable shows up, grabs the object away from Kaiser, and that leads to Rey hitting a 619 and dropping the dime to win in 8 minutes and 35 seconds. And then we get a Gable-Kaiser pull-apart afterward. This was so confusing to follow, and all I will say is that I know that this match is going to be super over in AAA, and I know that they're going to say, look at all this promotion they're getting on Raw. It will be in spite of what we're going to get over these 4 weeks, because, I think that this is going to be just the most nothing program, but it's going to be this incredible atmosphere in Mexico. Part of me wishes this was just built up on AAA, but they're obviously using Raw to really make this show big. But I think it's so night and day watching these two on Raw, where they just feel like undercard comedy heels, and in AAA, like this is a big main event.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine they'll still kind of stay the course with like the Americanos with their numbers advantage, leaning more towards being a heel versus Gable being a babyface, who I just don't think at this point it feels really earned. Like they've yet to give us a really real compelling reason about why we should be cheering for the Gable version of Americano. Maybe the idea is that like he had his identity stolen, but he was a heel to begin with. And so somebody stealing his identity almost feels like it's a babyface move, right? Anyway, it's I guess I failed to click that.
This guy went after Kaiser's girlfriend on AAA, and Kaiser came to her defense. Like it's so clear in AAA, and here, like, again, it's like watching two different programs that are building up the same match at the same time.
I think they could just execute a double turn, and I think it'd be very successful. I feel like if you let this like Kaiser version just like run with his Spanish promos, I honestly feel like he would get over in front of an English speaking audience as well. Just because just on the surface, he already looks so much more entertaining, and so embodies, I think, the role so much better than Gable does. And Gable, I think, works a lot better as a heel, especially under this mask.
So Kaiser might have lost this match to Rey, but did you see he got a big win today because there was Ric Flair, his latest apology from the Ariel Helwani interview.
Oh, no, I did not see it.
Yeah, there was. Here, let me see if I can pull this up. Of course, this was the capitalize all words apology. Mr. Ludwig Kaiser, I never implied that you couldn't work or didn't have talent. I actually understand that you are doing really well with, fans of Lucha will love this, with The Undertaker's promotion. I am sorry that I got upset. I am naturally very protective of my daughters, as I am sure as you grow older. You will be too. Continued success. Apologize for anything I said about you personally. It was not about your professional skill, which I have heard is very good. I was like, I seem to recall you stating this guy was not a gnat on the wall of pro wrestling, that this guy had no talent, that was going to, where's this guy's career going to go? Yeah. I think it was very much about his skill, the way he framed it. It was almost like somebody called him up and explained who he was to Flair, that, yeah, he's actually wrestling in WWE and AAA, and he's actually really good.
Flair could be genuine, but honestly, at this point, it just feels like he's doing this because he wants to get back into the good graces of the WWE. You know,
he's had to make multiple apologies after this interview. I don't
really
know.
What else has he apologized for?
He had to apologize because he buried Charlotte's match at WrestleMania, and then he had to come out and explain that he didn't hate the match. He just wants to see her in big singles matches. But it's just like, dude, what are you getting out of these interviews versus the headaches that you create for yourself after them? Like, this is just, I don't know. It's just like, he'll spout off about all this stuff, and then it's like, he's got to walk back all this stuff. So anyway, Grayson Waller and Oba Femi went 1 minute 5 seconds. Waller was caught with his rolling stunner into the ring, tossed in the air, and then fall from grace. Quick win by Oba. And then he states, with all the champions being tied up and no more U.S. Open Challenge, he is starting the Oba Femi Open Challenge. Basically, there's no storyline for me at the moment to feud with. So we're just going to keep me busy by killing people every week, which is not the worst idea for this guy. But it is, I guess, a compromise from people that want to see this guy elevated after this Lesnar win. But they're kind of putting this guy on ice while still prominently featuring him each week.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it leads up to? This is typically, I would say, I guess open challenges for a championship are certainly a babyface trait, and this works for him. But what's the guy at the end? You know, what do you think they're leading up to?
I still believe we're getting Brock back at some point, and maybe it's the reversal here. Like, Oba accepted his open challenge, and maybe at the end it's Brock confronting Oba or jumping him or something. That's where I see this one going.
Okay.
And if you're looking at like a timeline, I mean, SummerSlam would be a long time for that. And the fact they're going to Saudi Arabia, like, I would think if Brock, like, that would be the show. I would be thinking like they would want a Brock on, whether it's with Oba or if they ultimately change plans. But the way this is kind of laid out, I could see that being an end result here. Judgment Day is in the back, and Liv wants to speak to Roxanne alone to finish their conversation from before WrestleMania when they got their heads smashed into one another. So everyone was probably on the edge of their seat waiting as this close-up shot is, it's like, oh my God, keep your heads as far apart from one another here. Maybe we could just like text. And Liv apologizes for how everything went involving Finn Balor while Perez was at home. She says, I know that Finn brought you into the group, but I was also at home when Finn brought you into this group. And Perez explains she understands what Liv is saying. And Perez is then left alone. And dude, this was like Danhausen, like just poof, appears out of nowhere. And Finn is there. Like, there's literally no conceivable way Liv did not see this man. Like, they changed places during this one cut. And Perez says, you're not supposed to be here. And Finn says you can't trust anyone in Judgment Day, but Perez says, well, I'm not sure if I can trust you, and kicks Finn out of the Judgment Day clubhouse / black curtain with that's been tarped off in this part of the Sames Auto Arena.
Yeah. So first of all, I think all of this is actually, I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see the focus be put on Roxanne Perez as what, she's the central figure in this storyline. And essentially the story now is, will Roxanne Perez turn babyface, join Finn Balor, and leave the Judgment Day? And it finally puts the, spotlight on Roxanne, and maybe begins your babyface turn with her. So I'm very happy about that. I also feel, though, like
this is a Judgment Day story, so this could be WrestleMania 44.
Very true. But this feels so disconnected from Finn Balor's match with Dominic Mysterio as the Demon. I understand they want the Demon because it's a cool, grand entrance, and I think everybody was probably very happy to see it. But again, I felt that match was so disconnected from the story they were telling with the Judgment Day, and Finn Balor doing shit like sneaking in to the clubhouse. Tonally, it just feels completely off, and I don't think they really got there, in a satisfying way, nor did they get out of there into something like this in a very satisfying way either.
This is all backwards. It's all backwards because of where WrestleMania fell and where they were in this. Because what this should have been was Finn Balor being kicked out and vowing revenge on Dominic Mysterio, but falling because of the numbers disadvantage. And then he takes out JD, and then he's got to enlist the Demon to finally vanquish Dominic. But we've gone in reverse here, where he's beaten him as the Demon, then he takes out JD, and now he's got to face him as just plain Finn Balor.
Right. Yeah. Maybe a tag match here, building up with Roxanne.
With who?
Liv and Dom versus Roxanne and Finn.
Oh, okay. I think that's a ways away. I think we're gonna tease this
maybe.
Roxanne caught in the middle for a while. But we go to Bayley and Lyra Valkyria against Raquel and Laredo's own Roxanne Perez. And my God, you have never heard a crowd. That was so... They were here for this one woman, and they are just chanting so loudly. When she is tagged in, this place is on their feet. And what a position for Bayley and Lyra, who, there was no purpose. They worked this match as baby faces, but nobody was behind Bayley and Lyra here. This is where you adjust for the crowd, because this was a Roxanne Perez crowd, and that's all they wanted to see. They beat on Bayley throughout the break after her shoulder was run into the post. Lyra's then in. They do a side Russian leg sweep, running boot combo onto Bayley. Bayley stops Pop Rocks, hits the Bayley to belly, but Raquel makes the save. Everyone cheers. And then Lyra takes out Raquel, and Bayley goes after Liv on the apron, gets snapped on the rope, and into a Shining Wizard and Pop Rocks as Perez pins Bayley for the big pop at 9 minutes and 19 seconds. So they booked this one well for this crowd they were so heated for Roxanne Perez. She felt like the biggest star on the show.
Yeah. I mean, this crowd really showed up for her. And they made her feel probably the most significant she's felt on the main roster, maybe since her debut. It made her look very special, and I'm glad they gave her the win. But it also, of course, serves the greater purpose of the story, which is Liv Morgan trying to earn the trust, or at least trying to convince Roxanne Perez to maybe stick closer to her.
And no Dominic and no JD on the show tonight. So Ruka video airs, and she will officially sign with Raw next week.
Mm-hmm.
So is she technically a free agent?
Yeah.
Couldn't Aldis snatch her up?
Maybe she already negotiated and agreed to terms. Yeah.
Final segment, Roman Reigns comes out. I think his entrance was about a half an hour. And he says how they made this world title in spite of me to take away from my shine. It kind of was watering down the championship when they introduced this thing. And said it never worked. The man makes the title, and I made this title relevant. I put it in the main event of WrestleMania. And then Jacob comes down. Reigns hopes that Jacob has decided to unite and not divide the family. I gave you a week to think about it. And Fatu's like, I didn't need a week. I didn't need an hour, because I told you that I don't want that title. I need that title. And he tells Roman, you're stuck in your main event bubble. 12 years of hard work and grinding while you were running the Bloodline. I was broke. I had to work on the independents. And he says it was Solo that gave me a chance here. Reigns says, Solo? Solo's got no power here. I run this place, and I never forgot about you. I'm the one who signed off on you to come. Which kind of makes no sense when Solo had broken away from Roman and brought in Jacob as like a weapon against Roman Reigns. So whatever.
Well, Reigns also insinuates that he signed off on CM Punk coming into the company. So I don't know. He's sort of like hinting at some sort of like greater influence that he has on every signing. It feels like
he works in talent relations on top of it. He says he explains how Jacob has not earned a title match yet, and to give him a title shot would be nepotism. And that's it for Fatu, who just attacks this guy and attacks him with the Tongan death grip. And he takes Roman down, and they really did a great job of getting this Tongan death grip across as like this dangerous finisher for Jacob Fatu. Roman sold it effectively, and then Fatu just drops the belt on top of Roman. And Roman, as he's choking on the microphone, accepts the match for Backlash. And Fatu says, I'm not waiting till Backlash. I'll see you next week, as we got the graphic down there next week. Omaha, Nebraska. Is Roman going to Omaha next week? So that's how
is he announced for it? Yeah.
Well,
I thought this was a tremendous segment. Jacob, I think in every instance of like this program, I think he's just killed it. Like he really, really looks like somebody capable of a top tier program, top tier championship level program. And I will say definitely champion at some point. He's just sounded so authentic, so real on the microphone in ways that I don't think any of the Usos or Roman or Solo have been able to sound. So, like Roman's thing is sort of altogether very different. And I think Roman is actually very, very strong on the microphone these days. And Jay and Jimmy both kind of have their glimpses. But Jacob is just like a very different type of level. When he talks about, grinding for 12 years, it just sounds very, very authentic, very believable, and very likable. And he continues to show this every single week as part of this program. And I've just been so impressed by him. The physicality here I thought was really strong. Something like a Tongan death grip. I mean, it really requires, I think, like a scary scene, right? Otherwise, it just looks like somebody sticking their fingers into somebody's mouth, which like wrestling has precedent for. But of course, this needed to sound especially serious considering this is like his new submission finisher that they're trying to sell.
They like the purpose of this segment. Set up the match, but get this finisher across. And
the fact that it was so sudden, I thought was so great. It almost like hushed this crowd into silence and didn't necessarily like give them the babyface moment that they might have been looking for. But I thought it gave them a scary moment, which is I think like that much better and effective, for this.
Keep this guy off of Omaha next week and just give me a training session of Haku passing the Tongan death grip down to Jacob Fatu, and they're just like destroying shit at home with their thumbs.
Yeah. No, but why would Haku pass this down to a man who just destroyed his children?
Families are complicated, as Paul Levesque once said. Yes,
yeah, maybe.
Great promo here from Jacob Fatu. I like, while you were running the Bloodline, man, I was grinding in Contra Unit. Okay, so there you go. A strong end to Raw, and so we have 3 matches set for Backlash with Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu. We got Seth Rollins against Braun Breaker, and I totally skipped over the Asuka promo because this was actually really great. It's a taped segment, and it's Asuka subtitled, addressing Iyo Sky, stating that I say when we're done, and said, Iyo, you've done nothing but disappoint me, and said, I thought I had done something wrong for you to turn your back on us, but I realized you were the problem. You are my biggest failure, and you failed your family. And then the line, and now we are both alone because I didn't want another Iyo. And that, folks, was your write-off of Kyrie. Iyo killed her family. Now she will destroy Iyo and teach her one final lesson at Backlash, that she is never and will never be ready for Asuka. This promo was incredible by Asuka, but real kudos to whoever edited this video where Kairi Sane didn't appear at all in any of that. This was all just the two of them interacting, including her arm that was cut off at one point.
She did appear, like, at least in a very short glimpse. Like, you could see her face.
Did she?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
But it was like, like blink and you missed it type of thing, So so very unfortunate, of course. Like, unfortunate for all of them having to, I'm sure, like, wrestle with a lot of personal heartbreak, at news like this, and having to continue a storyline without somebody who was just there in helping you tell all of it. That's incredibly difficult. I will say, I think, like, to attribute the loss of Kairi Sane to Asuka with a line like this, I actually think is a very clever way of explaining it. Again, no, like, a ton of sympathy for the people that have to continue to perform this in spite of all that. But just as a way to deal with this into story while still continuing the story and to further fuel the heat, I suppose, for the heel here, I thought that actually was a good way.
I understand here they're dealing with, like, these are, like, for your creative team that they're not the ones here making these choices. This is thrust upon them, and they've got to make sense on
other than the head of creative, we should say.
The head. I'm saying, like, your staffers that are most likely writing this and have to make sense of something that really doesn't make any sense. Like that's what you have to do. But I always feel these things are really sloppy, and this is fine. Like, this is the way they do their business. It's like people disappear mid storylines. That this is not a first. It won't be a last. But man, save me the next time we get the big WWE deserves Emmy consideration. This is so sloppy. Like, you would never put up with this on any other show where we just, because of budget reasons, we fired a character mid-story and we just have to write them off. That's so sloppy, and I'm not going to give any, like, praise for how they handle these things when it's their own doing. And they clearly didn't even, like, obviously, last Monday, like, it's not as though you even get, like, some clean write-off. I'm sure there were many people that had no idea last week that Kairi would not be back the next week. You just have to pivot at that point.
Certainly, yeah. I don't know what sort of, like, decision-making process was involved in the selection of Kairi Sane as one of the people that had to go, and how late into the whole creative process of, well, last week's show, WrestleMania, etc., that they made that decision. But yeah, I definitely think you should dock marks for how ultimately the story was revealed, which I actually not
like, as a viewer, like, you're just like, we were talking last year, like, this had become, like, the story on Raw that we were focusing on every week. And it's like, they just axed one of the characters. So there you go. That was Raw from Monday night in Laredo, Texas. Great crowd. Some strong segments to build up Backlash. And yeah, closing with Jacob Fatu and the Tongan Death Grip.
Yeah, I think they continue to do great work with Jacob Fatu here. Friday, they fed the entire MFTs to him. And in tonight, like, he stood on a stage next to Roman Reigns and felt like a star on the level of a Roman Reigns, at least in competition. So I thought he sounded great. Braun Breaker, getting that finally getting this, like, face-to-face discussion with Seth Rollins.
Nose to nose as well.
Nose to nose. I thought he did really well in the promo. Joe Hendry, I thought, had a strong debut.
Yeah, I thought that
Roxanne Perez too, another highlight of the show.
Perez, they were really into. Penta, they were really hot for. Like, again, the crowd really stood out for me as well. I mean, the Oba Femi thing, like, they've got an idea, and these will be, like, fast. Like, they're just gonna book, like, these killer squashes for Oba Femi. And I guess it'll be interesting to see, like,
who gets fed to him.
Yeah, are these just going to be? Like, I feel just putting in no names, I don't think they'll go to that level. But, I mean, let's just put it this way. If you're on Oba Femi duty, I wouldn't feel great in this WWE climate. So, finally, NXT on Tuesday night, they have announced Miles Bourne against Saquon Sugars for the North American title. Ricky Saints against Shiloh Hill. I guess Ricky Saints is going to meet his demise on Tuesday night in some form or fashion because he's up to SmackDown. This show is going to be really interesting to watch because, my God, we talked about the beginning of the year of NXT getting gutted. It's not even like a 1-year rehabilitation process. It's like 3 months, and they've been re-gutted at this time. Lexis King and Uriah Connors against our guy Dorian Van Dukes and EK Prosper, and the debut of Lizzie Rain.
That's right. Yes.
I hope it's against Izzy Dame.
Lizzie versus Izzy. Yeah.
Rain versus Dame.
I wonder if they'll change that one. But I mean, there's something I think perfectly interesting about how over the top, like gimmicky. You could definitely say like more 80s. I guess in her case, maybe 80s/70s gimmicky. Something like that is that I kind of look forward to seeing in NXT.
Yeah, she's legitimately the niece of Clive Burr from Iron Maiden. So I'm sure that will be told about 1,000 times tomorrow night. So Dynamite Wednesday has 3 title matches. Darby defends against Brody King with the AEW title defended. Kevin Knight and MJF for the TNT title. And Divine Dominion against Chris Statlander and the character that is really growing on me, Hikaru Shida, for the tag titles. There was a segment on Collision, and I laughed out loud as Mina Shirakawa is with Harley Cameron, and they're opposite Statlander and Shida. And Shida's doing all of the talking. They want a tag title shot, and Statlander is like completely caught off guard here that Shida is volunteering them to go after Divine Dominion, and Mina is just like, Chris, how could you? And Statlander gets no word in here. It's just Shida speaking for her. Anyway, it's something that they're doing with Shida. So there you go. That's coming up on Wednesday night in Fairfax, Virginia. So we will be back Tuesday with our review of Real American, episode 1 for everybody. And then Wednesday night, we will have Rewind to Dynamite. Pollock and Thurston this week. That's Thursday night. And of course, Wai Ting and Neil Friday nights for Rewind, a SmackDown, which we're coming down where it's going to be 2 hours in no time, Way.
I mean, whatever, I'm kind of used to it at this point. So,
well, yeah. All right, everybody, we're going to say goodbye to those on the YouTube stream. We're going to continue with some questions and feedback on the XL portion.